It just got very real for the New York Islanders. With the 2025 NHL Draft Combine complete, the Islanders now have all the information they're possibly going to have about the top prospects in this draft. They've seen them play, they've watched them perform at the Combine, and now they've also interviewed all the players, and now it's time for the New York Islanders to make a decision. We're going to break that all down and really talk about some of the most interesting quotes from the draft combine and really talk about a player that I have not been giving enough credit when it comes to this race for who's going to be the first overall pick. But really quickly before we get into that, we noticed that 74% of you who watch these videos are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe, it's free. Our goal is 1,000 subscribers before the NHL draft. So if you haven't already joined this Islanders community, what are you waiting for? Now let's really get right into these draft combine quotes, and we're actually going to start this video with Michael Misa. Now on most of these draft videos that I have been doing, I've been really focusing on Schaefer because, for the record, I do believe Mathew Schaefer is the best draft talent available for the New York Islanders. I think he should be the choice, but there is still a very good chance that the Islanders decide to select Michael Misa, and there actually are really good arguments, as we're going to get into in this video, on why they should draft Michael Misa. But first, we're going to get into some of his quotes that he had from the Combine, because I think some of these are really interesting. Michael Misa says, "My playmaking is probably my strongest asset. I give it to my speed and my shot too. Those are three things. That's something I look to take with me to the next level, and I think it's going to help my game a lot." And right there, those are some of the most realistic reasons why you should draft Misa, especially the shot and the playmaking. The playmaking is great, but the Islanders do have a couple playmakers. What they drastically need is scoring. And when it comes to this draft, if you want scoring, Misa is the prospect. We're going to talk about looking at his stats in a little bit. He really showed that he can both score points at a high-level playmaking game, but also really put goals in the net himself, which is something that the Islanders really lack. And other than Cole Eiserman in their prospect pool, it's something they also lack down the system. Yes, Cole Eiserman, if he hits, is going to be a huge goal scorer, but other than that, the Islanders are still a team that really struggles with having a ton of playmakers and not enough snipers. And Michael Misa is a player who is not only a sniper, but can also score goals in front of the net, get dirty. If you watch him play juniors, there's no shortage of ways that Michael Misa knows how to score goals. There's a reason why he scored 62 goals in just 65 games. He also said, talking about that year, coming into this year, I just tried to round out my game with that 200-foot player. Offensively, I like to make plays. I got good hockey IQ. I just like to make players around me better. Defensively, I try to become more reliable and just be harder on the puck defensively to make myself a 200-foot player. Which is something else that Misa definitely is not getting enough credit for. Yes, he is a highly gifted offensive forward, but a lot of times when you draft these players so high overall offensively, they're really lacking defensively. And while we've been raving about how good Schaefer is at playing defense as a defenseman, which is true, I think Schaefer is perhaps one of the best defensive defensemen, well, best two-way defenseman we've seen in a while when it comes to draft since Rasmus Dahlin. But Misa as a center also really shows a lot of potential to be a really good two-way center, which is something definitely worth noting and something that makes him even more valuable. This is a player who's going to be contending for perhaps the Selke Trophy for the next 15 years for your team. Misa also is talking in terms of what he thinks about the Islanders organization, and he said, "I've got to know them over the last couple days. I did an interview with them, went out to dinner with them. They're a great organization. They have so many good players coming up, great young core. It's an exciting time." And yes, I definitely agree with Misa, where the Islanders do have a lot of young, exciting pieces, especially once they add Schaefer, Misa, or even Hagens to this prospect pool. It is going to start looking really deep. We're going to go from talking just last season, as we talked about in a previous video, to where the Islanders were the last place prospect pool in the entire NHL, to them likely being in the top 10, especially adding a top-end talent. One thing the Islanders prospect pool currently has, they have some really high-end players, but it kind of lacks the depth, and when they add another top-end talent like this first overall pick, and whoever they draft in the second round, that pool is going to get a whole lot deeper. It's going to be really hard to argue that the Islanders don't have one of the best prospect pools. Now, notably, one of the things that Misa said, or not Misa said, but his roommate said, actually raised a lot of attention in the terms of Malcolm Spence said in one of his media sessions that his roommate Michael Misa is actually hoping that he goes to the Sharks. Now, I don't want to read too into that. First of all, Misa is currently expected to be the second overall pick, which belongs to the Sharks, so it makes sense why realistically he's probably talking in the room about what his life will be as a Shark, because that is the most likely outcome. Although it is worth noting when it comes to all the quotes we've heard from all these players, hearing that Michael Misa wants to go to the Sharks might raise some eyebrows for Islander fans. Personally, I don't think this is worth getting too concerned about. I think it's more just Misa probably expects to be the second overall pick. After all, Schaefer is also in this draft. Now we're going to talk about some of the quotes that Schaefer had, but really quickly, I do want to really highlight these stats from Misa that I just have not been highlighting enough. I mean, his plus minus was a plus 45 in juniors this season. Clearly a two-way player. 62 goals, 72 assists, 134 points in 65 games. I do still think Schaefer is the best pick in this draft, but I will not be complaining if the Islanders decide to go Michael Misa first overall. In fact, I think there's a very good chance that Michael Misa is the best player in this draft. Really, we're not going to know for a few years who's going to be better between Schaefer or Misa. I'm still leaning Schaefer, but the argument can definitely be made. I think it's hard to make the argument for Hagens, but you can definitely make the arguments on why the Islanders should draft Michael Misa first overall. And in fact, I think there are several teams in the NHL that would draft Misa over Schaefer. I think that the Chicago Blackhawks are one of them, so definitely also keep that in mind when it comes to trade partners and potentially moving down from first overall to third overall in a scenario or something like that. There's a good chance the Blackhawks would actually go for Michael Misa with that pick, allowing Mathew Schaefer to slip to second overall. Now, we do have to talk about Mathew Schaefer's quotes from this combine, because I think it's also very worth noting. Schaefer, it was also really good to see he participated in the entire combine, showing how healthy he was. He didn't do any bench pressing or pull-ups. Those are the two he did not do, but he's completely cleared from doctors. I think that was more of a precautionary thing. There's really no concern with Schaefer when it comes to his injury. He is now completely healthy. The concern more comes that you just had a limited sample size this season, but what he showed was very good. And it's worth noting that Mathew Schaefer said, "I'm a two-way defenseman. I'm really competitive. I love winning, and I hate losing. Really good hockey IQ and really good skating ability. I like to play in all three zones and just be a defenseman that can play anywhere. Power play, penalties kill, go on the minute and go in the lead. Go on a minute, let's protect the lead. I want to be an all-round player." And that's really what you want to hear with a defenseman. You have so many defensemen these days coming up from in the draft who are just talking so much about their offensive game and really ignore the defensive side of the play. And Schaefer, what I really appreciate when he was talking about players that he thinks his game compares to, he talks about Cale Makar, yes, and Miro Heiskanen, two incredible defense, but he also talks about guys like Brandon Tanev, really showing that he really appreciates the smaller elements of the game, which is really what you need in order to become an incredible defenseman. So definitely passing ear test when it comes to what he said in his interview. I also want to quickly note, I didn't mention when talking about Misa, he talks about how his game is modeled over Kirill Kaprizov and Tampa Bay Lightning's Nikita Kucherov, and a lot of people giving him a little crap for this online, talking about how those players are wingers and also don't really play the same game as him. I don't think there's anything wrong with him finding little elements in his game don't quite fit what other experts expect. In fact, it's probably good that he's learning from all sorts of players, not looking at just certain types of players, to really expand what he's learning. Another thing I thought was really interesting is he picked one of his player comparables to be Mason Appleton, which a lot of people were saying, hopefully the ceiling is a lot higher than that. And again, I thought that was actually a really creative answer, and I actually appreciate him giving a creative answer rather than just going with the players that are obviously most like him. One would be Tim Stutzel, I think is a great example of what Misa likely is going to be in the NHL. And again, there's nothing wrong with the Islanders drafting that first overall. I think that would be a great pick. I still think Schaefer's better, and we're going to focus more on Schaefer here, but still, I do think in this channel, we'll be giving Schaefer a lot of credit and really kind of underscoring what Misa's done. When realistically, Misa does have a very good shot at being this first overall pick. I still think it is going to be Schaefer, but I would say there's probably around a 30-35% chance the Islanders just end up picking Misa first overall or trade down because they like Misa more than Schaefer. Another quote Schaefer said, he said, "There's a lot of great players in this draft." He actually mentioned Misa is a great one. "I've only played 17 games, which is something a lot of people have concerns with." And he said, in answer to that question and why he thinks he should be at the top despite not playing enough games, he said, "In those 17 games, I took it as opportunities, and I worked as hard as I could, and I left it all out there when maybe if I didn't, my ranking wouldn't be maybe otherwise." But I think it really showed what I'm capable of in those 17 games. And I agree, if you just watch full games of Schaefer, and really, for those of you who are on the fence about Schaefer, I would recommend, instead of watching like the highlight reels, just watch a full game and watch how he dominates that game and he can control the puck throughout any level he plays in, whether it be in the U20 or just in juniors this year. In both levels, he just completely dominated whenever he was playing, and that is something the Islanders are definitely looking at when it comes to making this pick. Finally, worth noting, Schaefer is actually working out at the same gym as Adam Pelech and is going to be doing off-season training with Pelech this off-season, which is just another reason that's really cool for Islander fans, first of all, and also something that you want to see, especially considering how good Adam Pelech has been defensively. He is exactly the type of defenseman you want Schaefer working with, and really to help push his defensive game to the next level. Because while I do think Schaefer is going to be an incredible two-way defenseman, a lot of times these two-way defensemen struggle a bit more when it comes to developing defensively, and Schaefer working with Pelech is a great way to get a head start on that. And honestly, hopefully, while I have talks a bit about the potential the Islanders do trade Pelech in this draft, perhaps it makes more sense for them to keep him around a bit as a sort of mentor for Schaefer. I think that could work really good for the future of the New York Islanders. Finally, we also have to quickly note James Hagens was also talking about what it means for him to be an Islander and how I grew up in Hop Hog, a little out east. I grew up skating in rinks all around Long Island, like Kings Park. I grew up watching games at Nassau Coliseum back in the day with the Islanders, so I grew up a big Islanders fan. Hagens is definitely a player who is pulling at the heartstring of Islanders fans. Compared to Misa, with that quote from his roommate Malcolm Spence about how he wants to be a Shark, there definitely is a pull when it comes to just how much Hagens wants to be an Islander. Still, for me, I think the logical choice would be Schaefer, and I would accept Misa. But let me know in the comments what you think when it comes to this draft. What do you think of the Combine? Has it changed your opinion on any of these prospects? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. This is Islanders Digest. Let's go Islanders.